A prescription is treated as a single event within OpenEyes, and it contains the components that allow the easy creation, editing, saving and then printing of a valid prescription. Now in this example, a patient has had an operation event created, the surgery performed, and then the operation note completed. Now the prescription event is itself created by clicking on the Add New Event button and then selecting the prescription event from the drop-down. And this brings up the prescription form itself. Now there are two methods for selecting the drugs required. The first is by selecting the individual drugs themselves through this selection and drop-down, or more likely and more quickly using the specialty specific drop-down menus with predefined sets of drugs. And here we have 3 for the VR service. We're going to select the post-op set, which then pre-populates the drugs that have been selected for that set within the table. Each line in the table shows the drug that's been selected, and it shows the name of the drug and the dose where appropriate, and an indication as to whether it's a preservative-free drug or not, the dose, default dose, the route of administration, the eye or eyes for medication, the frequency that you wish it to be given, and the duration you wish to see it delivered over. And this also allows us to remove a line if we no longer want it, or to taper it if necessary. So each prescription line can be tapered by clicking on the taper link, and it will bring up a new selection each time we click it. And this allows us to taper the dose over a period of time using the various options that we see here. So we can change the dose. We can look at the frequency, so we may start out hourly, move down to 4 times a day, and then daily, and then this becomes the prescription for that particular patient. And if a particular line isn't required, then we can remove it by clicking on the remove link. Now it's possible to add to the selection by selecting from the specialty specific defined list of drugs that we have here, and we can select it by clicking, and any selection is added to the bottom of the list. Or we can search directly within the formulary by just typing in ahead, like so. Now to aid the selection process further, it's possible to select a filter, for example to select only the analgesic drugs and then select from within that selection. Here we are selecting aspirin. If we wish to remove that filter, we simply move the cursor back up to the select option. Now another option is to select only from the preservative-free drugs, and this operates within any filters that you've set. So for instance, if we select chloramphenicol, you'll see here that we have a number of different options, both preservative-free and ones with preservative in. Now if we check the preservative-free box and perform the same operation, all we get are the chloramphenicol preservative-free options. So it's a quick way of selecting preservative-free if you wish that. The prescribing event will check for allergic responses of a patient to a prescribed drug if the patient has had these noted in the pre-op assessment or at the clinic. Now allergies are set up for a patient in the patient summary. So what we're going to do here is save this prescription as a draft, and that holds the prescription details indefinitely on the patient's record. So we'll do that and then move on to the patient summary screen. Here we can set up allergies for the patient. Here we're going to select penicillin and then add it for this particular patient. Having done this, we're going to move back to the prescription that we've just saved. We'll click on the episode that we have open for the patient, and then we'll open the prescription event itself by clicking on it over here, and then opening it up for editing. So here we are back in the prescription itself, and you'll see immediately we have a warning message telling us that this patient is allergic to penicillin. If we try and select it, we can still do so, and it drops to the bottom of the list, but it is highlighted now in red, indicating that there is an allergic reaction of this patient to this particular drug. It doesn't actually stop us prescribing the drug, but it means that we take it into effect when we're prescribing. So once the prescription is completed, it can be saved in draft mode as we did before, or it can be saved and printed. And here we see the printouts in draft mode. There are 3 pages of printout. The first is the prescription itself, the second a copy for the notes, and lastly one for the patient. On the prescription itself there is the place for the doctor's signature. Obviously that has to be signed and then taken down to pharmacy in the usual way. Now the action of printing starts the clock ticking on the ability to edit the prescription, and the record is then locked from midnight on the day it was printed. And the fact that it will be locked is shown by the icon on the prescription event, which when you hover over the little exclamation mark shows that the prescription will be locked from midnight. Now once a prescription has been saved and printed, it can be used again as the basis for a repeat prescription. And if we select a new prescription event, as we go here, we can go down to the Add Repeat Prescription button, and clicking on it brings up the details of the last saved prescription and allows us to quickly and readily complete the prescription again for this particular patient.